Ladies and gentlemen, it was bound to happen eventually, but Herman Mashaba has lost his mind. God literally looks like he's just gone bonkers. Maybe he needs to be committed. But you know who doesn't need to be committed? You, because you're watching Morning Shot. And I'm going to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, will you please subscribe to this channel? It really does help. And if you want to support the work I do here, why not buy me a coffee? The link is in the description box below. Now, before we get on to the main news stories, the time of recording, this was the 9th of September. Yesterday was the 8th of September, and according to Catholic tradition, it was St. Mary's birthday. You know, Mary, the mother of Jesus. So happy birthday, Mary. So on to some news stories that you might have missed. The first is actually the Minister of Police. So it looks like the current Minister of Police is doing something that the previous Minister of Police didn't want to do: tackle crime. And how he's doing that is he's actually going to both provincial, local, and national different law enforcement arms and getting them all to cooperate together. All of that to cooperate together to tackle the extortion syndicate and the crime that's occurring across the country. According to him, this isn't the time to see whose Johnny is longer, but instead for all hands to be on deck and to actually solve crime. And this is actually a good response, because if you think about it, the problem that we saw under Bekele is that Bekele always wanted to be the chief. If you looked at anything he didn't like any form of local or even forms of regional law enforcement. Unless it was under his direct control, yeah, he wasn't happy. And it would seem that the current minister doesn't share his egotistical self-interest. And I must say, that's rather refreshing, because crime remains one of the biggest problems in South Africa. Talking of egotistical self-interest, let's actually look at the ANC, because according to the ANC NEC, they're still trying to have a look at what they need to do in government to, improve the lives of people. I mean, they've been in government for nearly 30 years, but they still don't know. Check it out.
NEC deployees of the ANC will be across South Africa tomorrow in a number of provinces, in the Eastern Cape, in Northern Cape, in Limpopo, where we will be doing the same work of trying to understand what is the state of our organization, what is the state of local government, are we in a position to improve delivery of services to the people, where are the gaps, what interventions are needed for us to make in order to improve the provision of services on the ground. And once that work is completed, we will have that special NEC meeting to sum up on that work and then give a clear way forward about the issues that are under the...
Now, you see, why that news story in itself is interesting is because if you noticed on social media on the weekend, there was a rather famous clip that went viral. And this was the clip of the former broadcaster Tom London, who basically went to the Helen Joseph Hospital for treatment, and he says that the treatment that they got there was awful. He says that the people at the hospital basically treat you like you're vermin. They have zero interest in you. The place is dirty, is run down. Everybody mistreats you. And if you read the comments to that post, yeah, they're all the same. Everybody says that their treatment in that hospital has been absolutely abysmal. And that in itself becomes interesting, because this isn't the first time that this hospital has become famous for a degree of controversy. Let us not forget that in September of 2022, the taps at the hospital ran dry. This resulted in June of 2023, where the gift of the givers had to come in there and actually fix the water problems. Water problems in a hospital is really dangerous, because for those of you who don't know, you used to die from surgery quite a lot. And the number one reason for that is people did surgery with dirty hands. And so actually the biggest thing that improved mortality in surgery was washing hands. So water is really important to keep the hygiene in a hospital. There was also the debacle in December of 2020 where the food served at the hospital was deemed to be unedible. There was the debacle in March 2022 where they basically had violent psychiatric patients going around the hospital assaulting members of staff and also, patients at the hospital. There was problems in 2021 when the water problems meant that patients would die because they were racking up a surgery backlog. I mean, let's be honest, this could go on for a very, very long time. It's not taking me very long to find these examples at all. So when a member of the public comes out and basically said the conditions at the hospital are bad, I'm most likely going to agree with him that they probably are based on the evidence. Well, you see who doesn't agree with it? The MEC for Health in Gauteng. You see, apparently, according to him, it's all fabricated. Everything there's fine. And, he would have got the same treatment there that they would have got. So, what's the problem? And this in itself is exactly what's wrong with the ANC. You're not listening. You can keep going around for 30 years claiming, you want to have dialogue with everybody, but let's face it, when they tell you what the problems are, you don't listen. Talking of parties that don't listen, the NSPCA is asking why the MPA, the National Prosecuting Authority, hasn't prosecuted Julius Malema for that infamous cow slaughter campaign that we saw. This was basically the EFF during his last birthday celebration. Julius Malema attempted to slaughter a cow, and the actual clip of it went all around social media. A lot of people said that it was actually an act of cruelty in the way that he attempted to kill it and basically failed. The NSPCA says that he should be prosecuted. Now, I, for one, asked the first question, which is, why now? I mean, this happened a very, very long time ago. In fact, we actually did a video on it. And two, what exactly are you trying to, achieve by this? We're trying to make sure that Juju can never slaughter a cow again? I don't get it. Maybe you can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Was it just a way to, get Juju? And, whilst I'm all for getting Juju, can we get him on something legit? I mean, this seems a little bit of a stretch. Maybe it's because they think Juju's weaker now, and now's the right time to strike. I don't know. You know who's also weaker? ActionSA. And that actually brings me on to the main news story. You see, because ActionSA has just lost the plot. Now, we did a number of interviews with Herman and Mashaba, and during those interviews, we actually did some follow-on reactions to our own videos, and we did say something really important that's worthwhile repeating right now. And that is that they didn't really seem to have any policies of their own. And we did say the only real policies that Herman and Mashaba seemed to have was, one, don't let the ANC in power. It means already breached that one. And number two is, the DA's racist. Yeah, it's just racist. It's all their fault. There's a Wati party, they're racist. And we did say that causes a problem because a political party that doesn't have any form of political position is probably going to get that policy position filled by whoever they work with. As an example, the EFF. And that actually brings us on to the main issue. You see, ActionSA appears to be going into coalitions with the EFF. In fact, they actually appear to be actively endorsing the EFF. And so there's actually a couple places where we have seen this. The first and most important appears to be Swane, because ActionSA and their votes in Swane are likely to sway any coalition government on whether it goes to a EFF, ANC, ActionSA type coalition, or whether it's going to be the DA and their alliance partners. And ActionSA has made it rather clear. They apparently don't like Mayor Julius Brings, and they want to kick him out of office. So the ANC have also taken this position. ActionSA now says, DA arrogance, white boy there, he's such a racist. We've got to kick him out of office because apparently the problem that they have with Julius is that he doesn't believe that all the funds should go to the previously disadvantaged. Julius seems to understand something. You see, usually you maintain what you have and then build what you don't. And what seems to happen with a lot of politicians at the moment is that they neglect what you have and try to build something that you don't with all the funds. Problem is what you have, then it all falls apart. We have things exploding, flames falling out the sky, all the usual things that we see in those areas now. And then they go, well, how did this happen? It's like, well, you neglected it. You neglected it in favor of, the previously disadvantaged, which is what they're saying to you. Yes, you get to that. That is very important, but you need to maintain what you have first. Now, unfortunately, if you wanted to put that in racial terms, you just say, well, what you want to do is, pave the suburbs and you don't care about townships. And yes, that's nice politicking, but it's not really the reality of what's going on. What's actually going on in Swane is that there's a dispute over some tenders that they're saying are a little bit corrupt, and maybe they've gone through to BE guys, and maybe it's not legit. Some of them may be ANC cadres. None of that's really important. But you know what is really important? The fact that many people in the municipality don't want to see the EFF at the realms of power. And the reason for that is because where we have seen the EFF in power, it's usually been a disaster. If you want proof of that, just look at eThekwini, Durban. I mean, it's just a shithole. It actually went from being the jewel of Africa to the Durban of South Africa. It's just really not a good scenario. Even during Christmas, they didn't have the historical pools that was always open. Many of the hotels are closing, many of the beachside attractions are leaving, and a lot of it comes down to misgovernance. What we have seen in that area is we've seen stories of MECs of, finance from the EFF side running around buying, his slave queen's new cars and whatever else, all whilst the residents have a decline in service delivery. So with that being said, nobody wants to see the EFF in power, which is ironic because ActionSA now says, well, as an example, they are going to give the EFF Ward 35 in KZN, because why not? At least it's not the racist party of the DA. In fact, according to ActionSA, the mayor in Umgeni, Chris Papas, apparently he's a really bad guy because, he's presiding over the collapse in the water infrastructure there, even though it's not his responsibility. It's actually a provincial thing. And Athol Trollope, who's raising the objections, would know that because he was a mayor of Port Elizabeth until, remember, he had his throat to whiteness slit by the EFF. He seems to forget that. They removed him from power, and now he's wanting to remove Chris Pappas from power in Umgeni because of reasons. Now, if you ask ActionSA what their problem is like, oh, it's DA, they're all just arrogant. And this has actually led some individuals to say things such as, ActionSA is not going to have a good outcome in the next elections, especially in places like Swane, especially if they give the EFF control over power. And all we get from Herman Mashaba is the DA is worse than the National Party in building racial harmony in South Africa. Why call anyone who disagrees with their dishonest racial polarization policies as a traitor? This is what you get from Herman. We had it in 2 interviews. It's just everything's a race. These guys just erase grift of the highest order. Now, unfortunately, the DAs had to come out and basically say, are these guys having like a stroke or something? Because they just don't seem to be cognitively functioning. And this actually, I think, is exemplified in even this tweet right here from Herman Mashaba, and it reads, it's actually quite unfortunate and deeply worrying for the leadership of the DA and some of its supporters to refuse to acknowledge the need for social justice as a result of many years of oppression they inflicted on the majority of South Africans. Okay, social justice, now we're going to be the whole race victim. Right, okay, we're seeing where this is going. They've decided to project me as a horrible person for demanding services being provided to poor communities as well. No, that's not what they're doing. They're just saying you need to maintain the existing infrastructure before going on and providing services to communities that don't pay for it. Because the budget only goes so far. After ANC's failure to positively change our country, some of us thought that they were the option, and how wrong we were. Social justice is not negotiable. Their hatred is not going to change my perspective on this important mission. Firstly, whenever somebody says the word social justice, I just think, what a Karen. And whenever somebody starts espousing all this, oh, look at me, woe is me, I think, what a Karen. And when Herman Mashaba starts using racial language like, woe is me, I'm just a race victim, I just think, it's Herman Mashaba. It's just what he does. Look, I had just as much hope as anybody else about ActionSA, but let's face it, it's just a dumb party. The entire thing with him is just pointless. It's stupid. It's dumb. The guy doesn't seem to understand what the issue is. No one wants to see the EFF at the realms of power, bud. That's all it is. Like, you can sit there and get as upset as you want, but let's face it, in some areas, the budget is limited. There's only so much you can do. There's a lot of damage and decay that needs to be repaired, and the budget only goes so far. That, in addition to the corruption, and that means the additional levy imposed on fixing anything because of corruption, means that the budget goes even less far than you would want it to. This isn't rocket science. But you see, whenever ActionSA doesn't get its own way, it just throws its toys at the cot and calls everybody racist. Need I not remind everybody that the reason that there is no coalition government in Johannesburg itself is because ActionSA withdrew support, and then we got a Cope mayor, and everything went from there. Guys, this isn't new. Who's voting for these clowns? Come on, man. I've said this in a video before. I'm going to say it again. I will literally give my vote to the ANC before voting for ActionSA. Fikile, you've got my vote any day, bud. If it's you or Herman, I'm voting for you. And on to a final news story. One of the things that we advocate on this channel quite a lot is actually self-actualization. Here's an example of a Petrol attendant who actually finally got himself admitted as an attorney. And this is a lovely story to see because it shows you that if you really, really want to reach for the stars, you can make it happen if you really work hard and you're not just a victim like Herman Mashaba. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from me. I don't really have anything more to add. I mean, Herman is just a clown. And to see this all over again is just unfortunate. The language that he uses is just incredible. But you can let me know what you think in the comment section below. What's your view on the whole story? In any case, until next time, bye.
This is why you need to get yourself some white friends or Afrikaans friends. Because white people, they don't scared of wildlife like non-white people are. Like, they go and they embrace it. They have a totally different appreciation for wildlife. If that was a non-white person, we would have left the snake there, he's happy in his hole where he is, and we would have moved ourselves out of the country. Not Boere, brah. Boere are not scared of wildlife. They actually embrace their inner animal, and they go and they confront that. How many of your friends would have done that? Non-white friends, Not one of them. Last week on TikTok, I seen another Boere timer on a farm wrestle a wildebeest. Us non-white people, we see a Kasi dog escape out of the gate, we running down the street screaming, Mawe! We don't embrace wildlife like white people do or like Afrikaans people do. We need Afrikaans people. We need white people. This is a message to the EFF. Hope me in the cock. Because you guys are not going to fight the wildebeest in the street for us. Or that snake.